Fanatics. Welcome back, everyone. This is Alex Bryant with Fanatics. We're doing number 23, and it is the New York Giants. And I know what everyone's going to say. Oh, they were in the playoffs last year. They took a step forward with Daboll. They got Darren Waller. Sure, awesome. When we get to this point, 14 teams make the playoffs. So this is 7 back from the playoffs. They're a bubble team. I don't think anyone would say that they're not a bubble team. So I feel just because like we say in the 20s, doesn't make them bad. They're 23, and I honestly 23 through like 16, they're so close. It's so close. It's so close not to. I could easily have the Giants 17, easily, but it's just little tiny things that are like little red flags for me because I like the Giants. I want the Giants to do well. I want the Jets to do well. I want everyone in New York to do well because I want to see a parade. I haven't seen a parade. I've been here since 2012 and I haven't seen a parade. I need somebody to win something so I can see a parade. That's Yankees, Mets, Rangers, Nets, Knicks. Come on, somebody win a something. Anyways, I digress. This was pretty difficult. So I did kind of dive in a little bit. So I always start off with the PFF grades. And I know that everybody gets mad about PFF grades because it's stupid. It really is. I got to give some sort of outside perspective on what the average person thinks. And this is probably the most common thing that people look at. So and I always just give, because you can always make some sort of, you can scheme people open. You can scheme plays to your weapons. So I don't usually use grades for receivers or quarterbacks or running backs or any kind of skill player because a lot of that scheme, really is. I like Patrick Mahomes, their skill players, meh. Like last year, won a Super Bowl. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with meh. It's not unheard of for that to happen. The things that really, really matter for the game by game basis about how can you run the ball? Can you not? Can you protect your quarterback? Can you not? Can you guard receivers? Can you not? Those are more the things that I look at. So I usually only talk about O-line, D-line, and secondary because that's what kind of matter game by game by game by game. Because, I mean, people make plays. It's just I'm never going to give you receivers, running backs, or quarterbacks. So let's just do the PFF, what they have everybody graded. So they have the O-line for the Giants, 29th. That ain't good. It's not good. They have the D-line 9th. That is very good. That's top 10 in the league. That's very good. And they have the secondary 24th. So their strength is their defensive line, which I don't think anybody would agree with. That's been their strength for almost as long as I've been watching football. For their 2 Super Bowl runs, that was their strength. That's basically the Giants' bread and butter of all ever. So getting into that, you have to start kind of nuancing how you think things play out. Or not new. You have to start seeing how you project things to play out. So let's just go to last year. We had no tape really on Daboll. We had him in Buffalo, but he kind of came out of nowhere. So you got to think that you can kind of tell that in the record, right? They go 5-1. They go 6-1 in their first 7 games. That's ridiculous. That team was, what were they last year? They were the year before. They were 4-13, and they go 6-1 in their first 7 games. Might mean that nobody really had tape on Daboll, right? Maybe, probably. That's probably what it was. So let's go through it. They beat the Titans 21-20, Panthers 19-16. They lose to the Cowboys 23-16. They beat the Bears 20-12. They beat the Packers 27-22. They beat the Ravens 24-20. and they beat the Jags 23-17. That's that's good. That's really good. That's You're a good team. You're beating some pretty good teams. You beat the Jags, the Ravens. You beat the uh, you beat you beat you beat some good teams. Packers. I mean, another one, whatever. But the Titans then were good. Titans like fell off at the end of last year. But those were some good teams. But when you look at that, you're like, that doesn't make a ton of sense for where we had the Cowboys, or not the Cowboys, the Giants. That's really 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 good. 6-1. So let's keep going, just so we can kind of get more data. So they lose to the Seahawks at Seahawks 27-13. Then they lose. They beat the Texans 24-19. Maybe I have bad handwriting, but it looks like 24-19. They lose to the Lions 31-18. They lose to the Cowboys 28-20. They tie the Commanders 2020. They lose to the Eagles 48-22. They beat the Commanders 2012. They lose to the Vikings 27-24. They beat the Colts 38-10, and then they lose to the Eagles 22-16. So they start 6-1, and then they win 3 games after that, and that's against the Commanders, the Texans, and the Colts. So we just got to ask ourselves, which team is this? Is this the first team, or is it the end of the year team? And a lot of people will say, well, they had injuries. Everyone has injuries. It happens. The Commanders had injuries, and that was one of their wins. So everyone gets injured. It's the Titans lost 7 in a row last year because they got crushed by injuries. Those teams are also going to be better. So you can't just say they got injured, because that means everybody that got injured is going to be better. So you're still going against injured teams that got better. So we can't always just lean on injuries, right? And then you bring in Darren Waller. That was your big signing. He's a good player, but he gets injured. So you're basically adding a guy that gets injured to your injury team. All right. So the thing that you're most concerned about is injuries, and you bring a guy on that gets injured. And then they bring on Paris Campbell, which I think is a very, very underrated signing. I think he's very good. I think he's going to be the number 1 receiver for the Giants. But he gets injured. A lot of his injuries were weird. Like he had a foot break and a hand break, and he got a concussion from a car accident or something like that. So you're not really. We just got to slow down. We got to pump the brakes. They're still a borderline team. They got talent, especially on the defensive line. Their defensive line is very, very good. They might be better than 9. I think the only reason they're down to 9 is because we don't really know what Kayvon Thibodeau is going to do, because he didn't really break out last year, but he had some. He was a pretty good player. Dexter Lawrence, yes. Leonard Williams, yes. Like, they got some players, but Adoree Jackson played way beyond what he can do. Xavier McKinney, it's not awful, but it ain't. It's about 23. You're about a 23 power ranking team. That's what you are. So this team kind of reminds me of the 2021 Raiders. Like, you got some players on it, and you made some like acquisitions. They got Chandler Jones. They got Devontae Adams. They got players that made us, and we were like excited about the Raiders. But your quarterback's still meh. Your running back is good, but he's older. He's not. You don't have a dynamic receiver. It felt like you caught people off guard last year, and then when people had tape on you, they started to figure you out a little bit. And your schedule was fairly easy last year. So let's go into their 2023 schedule and how I have it graded. So I'm at home against Dallas. I think that's a loss. I think Dallas is the best team in the league. Actually, I think they're the best team in the NFC. I'm kind of changing my mind a little bit, but I think they're really good. I think they have the best offense. They have the best. They have the best people, best rosters. Jeez, best roster in the league. So I think that's a loss. You lost to them twice last year. You're at Arizona. This is the only reason I have it as a win with Arizona is I think that Arizona is amped up. People have been talking about how bad they are. I think they show up for their first couple games and then they eventually realize that they're pretty terrible. So I think that you traveling to Arizona, I think that's a loss. But even if it might be a win, but I think that's a sneaky loss. And then you go cross country again to San Francisco, then that's definitely a loss. You can't travel twice cross country and that be a win. Oh, at home against Tampa, it's a win. At Miami, loss. At Bills, loss. Washington at home is a win. New York Jets at home, but it's basically Jets and John. Yeah, they play in the same stadium. I have that as a loss. At Vegas, travel cross country again. I have it as a loss. At Dallas is a loss. At Washington is a loss. New England at home, I have it as a win, but that's tough. Green Bay at home, I have it as a win, but that's tough. At New Orleans, I have it as a win. At Philly, I have it as a loss. Rams at home, I have it as a win. And then you might come down to it because I have Philly 9-8 this year because Philly's schedule is very, very difficult. And I think it's going to be a must win for Philly. And that's why I think they win that game. But it might come down to that first. It might be Philly versus the Giants to get into the playoffs. Just because, and that's nothing against either one of these teams. It's your schedule isn't what it was last year. You had an easy schedule last year. Your schedule is a lot harder this year. It is what it is, man. You can't just play easy schedules every year. Sometimes you have hard schedules, sometimes easy schedules. This is how it works out. So that's sort of how I see it playing out. It just doesn't feel like you just don't get that much better. And I think that Daboll almost needs to kind of let people know that. You don't just go from 4-13 to 9-7-1 overnight and think that you're just gonna Daniel Jones. It's Derek Carr, and I don't mean to crap on Derek Carr, but Derek Carr went from what was he 7-9 team? I don't know. I don't have it in front of me to 10-7, and a lot of that was because they rallied around. Gruden got fired. They just had some sort of momentum. Their schedule wasn't difficult, and they somehow got to 10-7. But they're not a 10-7 team. They just got there that one year, and then they were 6-11 last year. That's what I had the Giants. They're 6-11 this year. So that doesn't mean that they're not taking steps forward just because you don't make the playoffs. They still are improving the roster. Daboll is still a very, very, very good coach. I just don't see where your talent is that I think you improved even more. Daniel Jones is Derek Carr. They're the same. They're basically the same player, in my opinion. They don't play the same way, but the same level of player as far as when he's coached up and he's hot and he's playing really well. Maybe he's kind of between 10 and 15 as far as quarterbacks in the league. Maybe he's an above average quarterback. When he's playing bad, he looks like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. And that's what he's going to be. And it's almost like they're making mistakes front office wise. It's kind of what Cowboys were doing. Cowboys is a far better roster, but they backed themselves in a corner with Dak, and they eventually just had to pay him because they didn't have a good plan, and they waited and waited. You don't pick up somebody's fifth year option. Have a backup plan. That's what were you going to do? What were you going to do? Draft a quarterback? Great. Okay. Why didn't you draft a quarterback? I like Daboll a lot. I'm actually really kind of upset that the Panthers didn't fire Rule before the season last year because we weren't able to get Daboll. And I think Daboll's a very, very, very good coach. And I think that he'll probably win one of these games. They'll probably go 7-10, maybe 8-9. But they're just not they're not a 9-win team. They're just not. They don't have the talent for it. They gotta he's coaching them up though, man. Adoree Jackson was fine in with the Titans, and man, he had a great year last year. I think he is who he is. He's not gonna. Uh, uh, I mean, you see these receivers, so I just don't. Isaiah Hodgins, what was he, a 6th round pick? You get Jalen Hyatt, maybe he's good. Cole Beasley you got Cole Beasley, Jameson Crowder, like. So here we go. I do this with everybody else. I do it with the Saints, right? When people talk, listen. They got Jimmy Graham. Why did they get Jimmy Graham? Because they need a tight end. They need pass catchers. They need talent. They're telling us they don't have talent. They don't have enough talent, and they're trying to kick the tires on these older guys to see if they have one more year in them. Why else do you have Cole Beasley and Jameson Crowder? Why do you have these guys? They're telling you. They're telling you. They're telling you that Bellinger isn't good. They had to go get Darren Waller. I don't. But so yeah, let me stop like being bad about it. Let me flip it the other way. Let me talk about the good things that they're doing. I think that Paris Campbell. I wish they would have got him for a better a longer contract. This guy was all combine. He was an all combine team. This dude runs a 4.340 and doesn't have hamstring issues. He doesn't have groin issues. He didn't tear his ACL. He didn't have an Achilles. His injuries are: I broke my hand, I broke my foot, I strained my abdomen, or something along those lines. He's he could be him and DJ Chark, man. Those two guys have been like we've been touted as these guys are injury prone. Both those guys are fast guys, and Paris Campbell's the same size as Stephon Diggs. And Daboll came from Buffalo, and he targeted Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell's not going to be Stephon Diggs, but he has a role for him in this offense. Darren Waller, he went after him for a reason. He has a role in this offense. They just didn't fix up. I mean, Buffalo didn't have a good offensive line either. They didn't fix their offensive line. He still got really good. There is a world where this offense is good. I mean, there is a world in the defense. We know the defensive line's good. If the corners play well, they'll be in games. I don't see it. A lot of it's injury prone too. Saquon just gets too many touches. All these receivers got hurt last year. They don't have any O-line depth. Daniel Jones is running all over the place. He is not Josh Allen as far as physicality. He gets one big hit. That's tough. They just don't have any depth on defense either. But I like what they're doing. I think that say it's Steelers light maybe, whereas even when Steelers are bad, they just win. So I think that they might be able to be in games and might can pull some out. I just don't see them getting the Steelers. The Steelers are better than they are. Steelers are good. They have a lot of holes, and I hate people that say that because they say it with the Panthers and they say a lot of holes. But I'm outlining the holes for you. They don't have depth on defense. They have a good defensive line. No one real behind it. Adoree Jackson's their best corner. He completely overplayed his talent level last year. I don't see it happening 2 years in a row. People are going to see them coming. Saquon's older. So I'm giving those are the holes that I'm giving you because I hate when people just say they have holes. Evan Neal was not. Andrew Thomas is good. Evan Neal was. I don't know what's going on with him. He doesn't seem as good. I believe their center is a rookie. So their offensive line. Whew. And your top three receivers are Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell, and Darius Slayton. So those are the holes. That's the holes. And they basically told you those guys aren't good because we're kicking the tires on Beasley and Jameson Crowder. So that's what I have in the Giants. I went back and forth with them at 23, and honestly, I had them all the way up to 20, and then I came back with them. It's just so close. It's so close between 23 and 17 that it's like if you do fantasy football, it's like a tier. They're in that tier. So if you said that they're 17 or 16 or something like that, I couldn't argue with you. I think to let you know, when I say there's 14 playoff teams, I think there's probably, if I had to rank a top 14, I don't have it right in front of me. I think there's probably 4 teams or 5 teams in my top 14 from the NFC. So even at 23, that still might be a playoff team in the NFC, because the NFC is just not very good. If you look at all the teams before me, before this one, a lot of them were in NFC teams, and a lot of the ones right after this are going to be NFC teams. So they could still be a NFC playoff team, even if they're the 23rd best team in the league. And I think, honestly, I think that's what they were last year. I think they were probably around the 20th best team in the league, and they made the playoffs just because they're in the NFC and their schedule was pretty easy. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm not going to be I'm not. I just want everybody to know I'm not being like a Giants hater by having that 23, because they're going to be on the bubble. They're going to be a bubble team. They're going to be a bubble team. I think they're going to be 6-11, but there's a real shot they could be 8-9, 9-8, and that might be able to get you in the playoffs in the NFC. But that's all I got. They don't have a lot of players that you're inserting from what they didn't have last year. So there's not a lot that I can talk about from their free agency standpoint or their draft standpoint, because it really just didn't change that much. So appreciate you listening, and I hope you enjoyed, even Giants fans, because I'm not saying that they're not going to make the playoffs. I'm saying that they're not going to win in the playoffs if they make it. But I like where they're going. I like the Giants. All right, cool. I will talk to you next time. Let me see if I have like a good I'm trying to think about maybe like a all right, I got it. All right, cool. See everybody later.